Snow still clung to the high ridges when Martha Bell Cavanaugh walked down the muddy town street, her boots sinking deep into the thaw. Each step weighted with the stares that followed her. The thawing season always brought folk out, trading hides, seeds, gossip. But this day all eyes seemed to follow the mountain woman, whose name they'd long since turned to ash on their tongues. "There she goes," one woman muttered near the mercantile porch. "Barren Martha, wasting her years with goats in silence." Another voice carried sharper. "No husband to keep her. No children either. God's curse, if you ask me." Martha kept her chin high, her mouth pressed into the tight line of someone long practiced at holding words behind her teeth. The insults landed, as they always did, like stones against an already bruised rib. At the sheriff's outpost, 3 children sat on a long bench, their faces pale as ash, their clothes more ragged than fabric. They did not fidget. They did not whimper. They stared ahead with the hollow discipline of the abandoned. Behind the desk, Sheriff Amos Whitlock leaned back in his chair, hat tilted low, fingers tapping the handle of his revolver as though his authority needed no words. He glanced up when Martha entered, his lip twitching in something caught between pity and contempt. "You looking for stock feed, Martha? Or did you just come to warm my chair with your company?" Her eyes flicked to the children, then back to him. "I came for them." The sheriff chuckled, the sound dry as dust. 3 mouths too many, far as this town is concerned. Their kin ran off or rotted. They eat more than they work. I've been keeping em from starving, but winter's hard, and folks won't spare. $3 and they're yours." Martha's throat tightened. The words carried the coldness of a livestock trade. She reached into her apron pocket, pulled free 3 silver coins worn smooth by years of exchange. Her hand trembled as she set them on his desk. "I'll take them." Sheriff Whitlock's brow rose, but he made no argument. He swept the coins into a drawer and gestured with his chin. "Yours, then. Don't say I didn't warn you. Trouble follows the hungry." Martha turned to the children. The eldest boy, perhaps 10, stared back at her with steel-gray eyes too old for his thin face. His jaw was clenched, lips pressed tight, as if he'd bite her hand as she reached. The girl, younger, maybe 7, clutched a threadbare rag doll, so hard it seemed threatened to split. She looked away, not at Martha but at the floor, shoulders drawn small, as if she might vanish if she wished hard enough. The youngest, a boy of 5 with hair falling limp across his brow, coughed into his sleeve, the sound hollow and weak. He looked up at her with eyes softer than his brother's, eyes that held something like weary hope. She extended her hand, but none of them moved. Shame prickled her skin under the watching eyes of townfolk gathered by the window, their whispers running like a stream. $3 for 3 brats. Guess she's building herself a family now. Can't grow her own, so she buys them like feed. Lord above, what shame. Martha kept her back straight as a fence post. "Come," she said. Her voice steady though her chest thundered. Slowly, with reluctant steps, the children slid off the bench. The eldest boy shot the sheriff a glare sharp enough to cut, then followed Martha out. The girl's doll trailed from her hand, dragging in the mud. The youngest coughed again, leaning slightly toward Martha, as though his small body already leaned into her strength. The wagon creaked as she lifted them inside. The road to her cabin wound upward into the foothills, snow still patchy beneath the pines. The air smelled of thawed earth and wood smoke drifting from distant chimneys. Silence sat heavy among them. Martha kept her eyes ahead, hands steady on the reins. She had imagined, foolishly, that bringing them home might feel like filling a hollow. Instead, the hollowness seemed multiplied, for souls pressed into a wagon bound together by transaction rather than trust. Halfway up the mountain road, the boy broke his silence. "Why'd you buy us?" His voice carried no gratitude, only sharp suspicion. His gray eyes cut into her like flint. Martha's hands tightened on the reins. "So you have food, a roof, warmth." "We didn't ask you," he snapped. "We ain't charity." The word stung sharper than any town gossip. She did not answer, for pride and sorrow tangled in her throat. The wagon jolted over a rut. The girl pressed her doll to her chest, whispering something into its ear. The youngest boy coughed again, his body shivering despite the shawl Martha pulled from her shoulders to wrap him in. When she tucked it around him, his hand caught hers with surprising strength. His gaze lingered, not in defiance, but in something quieter, something that whispered trust not yet earned, but offered like a seed. The cabin stood sturdy against the slope, its logs weathered but sound, smoke curling from a chimney. The children looked at it with a mixture of suspicion and relief. Inside, Martha stirred stew from the pot she'd set before leaving that morning. The scent of onions, beans, and salt pork filled the small room. She ladled it into 4 bowls, setting them on the table. The girl ate quickly, eyes wide with hunger but cautious, as if the food might vanish. The youngest boy sipped slowly, coughing between bites but smiling faintly each time Martha refilled his spoon. The eldest pushed his bowl away untouched. "We ain't dogs to be bought and fed," he muttered. Martha looked at him, her jaw set. "Eat. Strength won't come from anger." His glare burned, but he did not lift the spoon. Instead, he stood and stalked the corner, arms crossed. The stew cooled in front of him, untouched. That night, Martha lay awake by the fire, listening to the small breaths of children asleep on pallets she had laid with fresh straw and blankets. The girl clutched her doll even in sleep, her face softened at last. The eldest boy lay with his back turned, rigid as a fence post even in slumber. The youngest boy's cough rattled in the stillness, and Martha's heart clenched each time. She rose quietly, brewed mountain herbs, and held the cup to his lips. His eyes fluttered open, soft and fevered. "Thank you," he whispered, the words barely audible. It was the first time in years anyone had thanked her for anything. Days passed in weary rhythm. Martha taught them chores, milking goats, fetching water, chopping kindling. The girl followed her instructions with a quiet eagerness, her small face lighting when Martha praised her. The eldest boy did the work with a scowl, muttering under his breath. Once, when Martha bent to lift the pail, he hissed, "You can't make us yours." His words struck deep, but she only answered, "I don't aim to make you anything but safe." The youngest grew weaker. Nights found Martha sitting by the fire, rocking him gently when his cough racked his small body. Once, half asleep, he reached for her hand, clutching her fingers tight. "Don't leave," he murmured. And she did not. She stayed until the gray light of dawn seeped through the shutters. When she finally took them to town for flour and salt, the whispers rose like hornets. $3 won't buy you love, Martha. She's playing mother now, bless her barren heart. Martha kept her head high, but Daniel, the eldest, snapped. He lunged at a man who spat too close, fist small but furious. Martha dragged him back, holding his wrist as his body shook with rage. "Let go," he shouted. "Not here," she whispered fiercely. "Not like this." That night, his anger boiled over. "Why'd you do it? Why'd you buy us? You just wanted to prove you could, didn't you? You wanted folk to stop calling you barren." The words broke something in her. Tears spilled before she could stop them. Her voice cracked. I wanted to be more than a woman, without children." The room fell silent. Daniel stared, startled by her confession, but said nothing. The girl hid her face in her doll. The youngest coughed and whispered, "It don't matter what they call you." Snow fell heavy that night. Storm winds battered in the cabin. Martha gathered the children close by the fire, wrapped in blankets, listening to the storm howl against the logs. She hummed a lullaby her mother once sang, soft and trembling. The girl drifted into sleep, the doll pressed against her cheek. Daniel's eyes stayed open, but his expression had softened. As though the lullaby cracked something within him, he refused to show. The youngest boy, half asleep against her chest, stirred. His lips parted, voice weak but clear enough. "Pa!" he whispered, looking at Martha as though the firelight had turned her face into another's. Martha froze. The name fell like a stone into her chest, reverberating with memories she had tried to bury. Hope, that had been the surname of a man from her past, a man who had left her reputation in ruin long before the gossip branded her barren. And now, in her arms, lay a child carrying that same name, speaking it like a tether she had never expected to find again. Her breath caught, tears burning her eyes as she stared at the boy who had cost her 3 silver coins, yet carried the ghost of a history she thought gone. The storm raged outside, but inside the cabin, silence pressed heavier than wind. And as the fire cracked low, Martha understood. The children she had bought for $3 were bound to her by something far deeper than pity. Fate had wound her barren arms around the very bloodline that had once left her empty